Hello, this is Susan Woods, your Black Lives Matter fraud investigator, still on the case. Today, we're talking about the Form 990, Part 8 Statement of Revenue that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation submitted in 2020. Yes, I am still analyzing the 2020 Form 990 information return that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation submitted in the wake of the George Floyd death. I'm continuing my fraud analysis and my identification of red flags. And again, this video message focuses on the Form 990 Information Return, Part 8, which is the Statement of Revenue. So let's get started. What is the Form 990? The Form 990 Information Return is an annual report the IRS requires all 501c3 nonprofit organizations to submit to provide information about revenues and expenses for the prior year. The type of Form 990 nonprofit organizations submit depends on the type of nonprofit organization and the amount of revenues and assets the nonprofit organization has on record. Form 990s are due by the 15th day of the 5th month after the fiscal year ends. For example, if the fiscal year ends on December the 31st, then the Form 990 is due by May 15th of the next year. The primary purpose of the Form 990 is to demonstrate transparency and accountability. If the nonprofit team fails to file the Form 990 for 3 consecutive years, the IRS automatically revokes the 501c3 nonprofit status, and you will have to complete the application all over again to reinstate your status. So this is just information about the Form 990 so that you would know what it is and the importance of it before we move on to the fraud analysis and identification of red flags. So now let's examine the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation's 2020 Form 990 Instructions, Part 8 Statement of Revenue, and 2020 Form 990 Information Return, Part 8 Statement of Revenue, because again, we're focusing on just one part at a time in these video messages, and now we are up to Part 8, the Statement of Revenue. As I mentioned in other video messages, it's always important to download and print, if feasible, the Form 990 instructions if you are examining an organization for the correct year. So since I am examining the transactions for the year 2020, I would need to go to the archive and download the Form 990 instructions for that year because the years correlate with the information returns. So I'm going to pause my screen and go to the Form 990 instructions and focusing on the Part 8 Statement of Revenue. So just one moment as I transition to that screen, and thank you for your patience. Again, I'm going to the Form 990 Information Return Instructions to discuss the parts of the Statement of Revenue that we're going to analyze for red flags. So now I'm here. I am at the Part 8 Statement of Revenue in the Form 990 Instructions. So we're focusing in on column A, and I've highlighted in yellow the areas that we're going to focus in on. So column A reads, all organizations must complete column A, reporting their gross receipts for all sources of revenue. So when we go to the Form 990 information return, and we go to column A, we will see a list of gross receipts for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation for fiscal year 2020. All gross receipts from all sources of revenue in column A. Now I'm going to scroll down because, like I said, I've highlighted the sections that I'm going to discuss in this section. So let me go. Oh, I thought it was. Okay. I'm going to go over to the side first. Excuse me. So over to the side, on this side of the information in column, second column here on this page, line 1 in general. Only lines 1A through 1F report cash and non-cash amounts received as voluntary contributions, gifts, grants, or other similar amounts from the general public, governmental units, foundations, and other exempt organizations. The general public includes individuals, corporations, trusts, estates, and other entities. Voluntary contributions are payments or the part of any payment for which the payer, the donor, does not receive full retail value or fair market value from the recipient, donee, organization. Contributions are reported on line 1, regardless of whether they are deductible by the contributor. So keep that in mind, because when we go and look at column A, line 1, you will remember the information that I've shared here, or at least it will be familiar to you if you don't remember it. So now I'm going to scroll down to review some more highlighted areas of this particular section, because I'm only highlighting information that I'm going to reference as red flags. So on line 1F over here on the left side, enter all other contributions, gifts, and similar amounts the organization received from sources not reported separately on lines 1A through 1E. This amount includes contributions from donor-advised funds, unless the sponsoring organization is a related organization, and from gaming activities. So be on the lookout for any content that is in line 1F, because those contributions represent all other contributions, gifts, and similar amounts the organization received from sources that are not reported separately on lines 1A through 1E. And it also includes some contributions from donor-advised funds, unless the sponsoring organization is a related organization, and from gaming activities. So just put a little note to see if there is something in 1F, because then you will know it falls into one of these categories defined here. Over on the right side, you have program service revenue. Now, program service revenue includes income earned by the organization for providing a government agency with a service, facility, or product that benefited that government agency directly, rather than benefiting the public as a whole. Program service revenue also includes tuition received by a school, revenue from admissions to a concert or other performing arts event, or to a museum. Now, I highlighted royalties, information about royalties, because that was the red flag that I identified. Royalties received as author of an educational publication distributed by a commercial publisher. Okay, so I highlighted that because I'm going to raise that when we go to the actual form. Interest income on loans a credit union makes to its members, payments received by Section 501c9 organization for participants or employers of participants for health and welfare benefits coverage, insurance premiums received by a fraternal beneficiary society, and registration fees received in connection with a meeting or convention. So the only part of program service revenue that I highlighted pertain to royalties. The only part that I highlighted pertains to royalties. But looking at the instructions, it's very helpful anytime you are analyzing a Form 990 for an organization, or anytime you know someone or yourself may fill out or complete a Form 990. Always have the instructions right beside you. I highly recommend printing them out so that you can have them right beside you and know how to complete the information, because it's crucial to include the right content in the correct areas of a Form 990. So I'm going to keep going. Over on the left side, line number 3, I've highlighted it because it raised a red flag for me. Into the gross amount of interest income from savings and temporary cash investments, dividend and interest income from equity and debt securities like stocks and bonds, and amounts received from payments on securities loans, and so on and so forth. So I raised that as a red flag, and we'll talk about it when I pull up the actual report. And then finally, line 5, I raised as a red flag. Enter on line 5, royalties received by the organization, and this goes back to royalties again, from licensing the ongoing use of its property to others. Typically, royalties are received for the use of intellectual property, such as patents and trademarks. So we'll look at that again when I go to the actual report. So that's all of the information. Let me double check. Oh, line 12. But line 12 is just the total column. So line 12 for column A adds lines 1H, 2G, 3 through 5, 6D, 7D, 8C, 9C, 10C, and 11E. Since we're only focusing on column A. So line 12 is just the total of all of those, of all of that data. Okay? So now I'm going to scroll back up and kind of summarize what we're doing here. We are in the Form 990 information return instructions. Again, you want to print these out so that you can go through them line by line, trying to understand what each line and section of the Form 990 means. We are focusing on part number 8, Statement of Revenues. So now I'm going to pause my screen for just a short period of time here so that I can then go to the actual Form 990 that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation submitted for 2020 and analyze the parts that I've already discussed with you. So just one moment as I do that. And thank you for your patience as I make the transitions from screen to screen. The reason we're focusing on 2020, because we're now in 2023, is due this year by May 15th, is because this is the year that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation admits to generating $90 million in the wake of the George Floyd fiasco after he passed away. It was also in the height, remember? In this year, in 2020, in the summer of 2020, that was the height of the pandemic before vaccinations were available. And thousands and thousands and thousands of people marched, remember, all over the United States and the world in the wake of George Floyd dying to protest the way in which he died. So this is the year that the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation received $90 million that they admit to receiving in their transparency report that they have on their website. So now let's take a look at what they actually reported. Let's take a look at what they actually reported. So this is the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation's Form 990 2020. You can see all of this identifying information at the top. And notice here at the top too is public inspection copy. the public inspection copy. So this is a copy that the public gets to look at, okay? And then it's the Form 990-2020 over here, you see that? And then you see it's the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation Incorporated. And then you see their EIN number. And we are on page 9 of the Form 990 information return. The first thing that I highlighted was in this section here, you see we have column A, total revenue. Remember, we're talking about column A only. And over on the left side, it has contributions, gifts, grants, and other similar amounts. And then they have different types of revenue that the organization claimed for that year. So let's take a look at what they claimed. On 1F, the organization claimed all other contributions, gifts, grants, and similar amounts not included above. They claim $76,872,002. Again, $76,872,002. That's what's in column A as the total amount generated from this particular category of contributions, gifts, grants, and other similar amounts. Okay, well, my red flag moment is, what happened to the 90 million? What happened to the $90 million that they claimed in their transparency document on their website? You know, the document they created saying we're going to be 100% transparent. Okay, well, why isn't this form report reflecting $90 million? Well, I'll tell you why. You might remember in a video message that I shared before, when all of the money started coming in, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation's leadership team at the time, which was Patrice Concoolers and Shalimar Bowers, board member / consultant who was paid $2 million. But anyway, they decided to change the fiscal year end. The fiscal year was originally January through December, 12 months. Regular old calendar year was the fiscal year. So that means all revenue that you generate from January through December of 2020 will be shown here. Some kind of way, I still don't understand how they got away with it. They changed the fiscal year end to June the 30th. So that means when you change your fiscal year end in that way, you are cutting out some months of reporting. That means you start your fiscal year in July and you end in June of the next year. So they cut out January, February, March, April, and May. This report does not reflect January, February, March, April, May, or June 2020. And you might say, why is that beneficial? Remember, George Floyd died in May of 2020. So a lot of their revenue, a lot of their donations came in May and particularly June of 2020. So how can you get around reporting June and not have the revenue so high here? Change the fiscal year end. Move those months to the next reporting period. And that way you can avoid about $14 million of reporting here. That's my opinion as to why they suddenly made the change. So let's keep going. That's a red flag. That's a red flag for me. The other red flag is under the program service revenue section here. I'm sorry. The other revenue section here, excuse me, not program service revenue, but the other revenue, if you can see here on the left side, I just highlighted other revenue right here. Let's look at number 3, investment income, including dividends, interest, and other similar amounts. Remember, I said this is a red flag for me because it's $114. Who invested their money to only generate $114 on 76 million? So that doesn't look right to me. And then royalties. Remember in the instructions, we talked about royalties and how you generate royalties from making sales of intellectual property. $2,772,707. What did you sell? What products did you sell? Did you sell books? Did you sell, what did you sell? I don't see anything that lists so far what was sold and how they were sold and the amounts, the number of sales or units sold. I don't know. I don't know where the royalties came from. So that's a red flag. So then we have total revenue on line 12, total revenue of $79,644,823. Still not the $90 million that they claimed, which I know, I believe in my heart, they generated more than 90 million during that time frame. So that is part number 8, statement of revenue. Now I'm going to pause. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation and close out the presentation. So I'm going to pause and go back to that, and then we're going to finish up with the presentation. So now we're back, and I said, now let's examine the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation's 2020 Form 990 instructions for Part 8, Statement of Revenue, and the information return, and we've done that. So let's keep going. So now let's look at the red flags that I tabulated from this particular section, Part 8, Statement of Revenue. All came from column A, contributions, gifts, grants, and other similar amounts. Okay, from line 1F, I talked about the difference between the 76 million and the reported 90 million, and I explained about the fiscal year change. And I suspect they changed it so that they could reduce the amount that they reported. On line 3, I questioned the $114 investment income, what happened to the return on investment. And then line 5, the royalties, the $2 million royalties, what did they sell? We don't know. So I tabulated 3 red flags from this section of the Form 990 information return for 2020 for the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. So now let's look at the cumulative all together now for all the parts, including the heading. I've calculated or tracked 42 red flags. 42 red flags when you add up all of the sections that we've discussed so far, from the heading down to part 8 that we discussed today. 42 red flags that I've identified, and I'm not a forensic accountant. Up next, we're going to talk about part 9, which is the statement of functional expenses. I'm Susan Woods, your self-appointed Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation private investigator, a fraud investigator. I thank you so much for your time. I thank you for your interest. You know, it's going on 4 years in May that I've been investigating this organization. And of course, you know, people have moved on. You know, most people have moved on with their lives, and I get it. But as I've shared with you before, this is personal for me. I operated a nonprofit for 10 years, and I remember begging, pleading for donations. And we were doing great work through the Emerging Leaders Mentorship Program for Black male youth, and through the program, the Panorama Computer Program, where we traveled around to teach middle-aged people how to use computers to get new jobs after their manufacturing industries went bust. So I know how it feels not to have the money to do good work, and then to see this organization just squander $90 million, at least $90 million on themselves. I think it warrants investigation, and I would hope that other grassroots leaders, nonprofit leaders, would feel the same way, because you're working hard, you're doing the work, and you need money. But it's so hard to get money to do good. Doesn't that sound crazy? but yet this organization wasted $90 million. So that's why I'm continuing the fight. I'm going to continue reporting every opportunity I get a minute to put together these video messages. I'm going to do it until I'm done investigating it and ready to pass it over to the FBI or CIA or whomever. The IRS should be investigating this organization, and it may be. I don't know. I don't know. It's not like they're going to announce it. Also, I shared with you in the last video that I posted that I've been approached about writing a book. So I am in the process of writing a book, and I'll share more information with you about the title and when you can expect for it to come out. And I'll also share with you where the revenues are going to go for the book. It's definitely going to go to a foundation that I started to benefit my hometown. So I'll be telling you more about that soon, and I hope that you will purchase the book, if for no more reason than to support my hometown. So I'm Susan Woods again, your Black Lives Matter fraud investigator. Thank you so much, and have a great day.